Hello everyone, my name is Beena Limbu and I'm doing my Masters of Public Health and Health Administration at Trobe University. For the subject Social and Cultural Perspective on Public Health, we need to do a book review for which I have selected the book The Wounded Storyteller, Body, Illness and Ethics written by the author Frank. Here is the book. It was written published in the year 1995. Author Frank is a professor of sociology at University of Calgary, Canada. He has written many books and articles based around illness stories. He has written The Wounded Storyteller, Body, Illness and Ethics, At the Wheel of the Body, Reflection of Illness, and many more. At his book, At the Wheel of the Body, he described his own personal experiences with heart disease and cancer as he himself was the sufferer and wrote that Remission Society is new, whose members were severely ill and disabled and knew firsthand the value of the everyday. However, at this book, The Wounded Storyteller, Frank expands his narrative from the particular to the universal, from the heart-wrenching story of illness to a sociological theory of illness and ethics. The reason for choosing this book is my interest, as I am interested in learning about the variety of illness experiences and the possibilities for coping with them. Moreover, I want to explore human experiences of illness towards disease rather than the disease perspective in terms of medicine and its effect on person's life, family, and communities. I found it very inspirational, full of philosophical and ethical queries as it helps to think more broadly how storytelling could be used more effectively in public health context. The Wounded Storyteller gathers a great deal of insight on illness and narrative, and it republishes the thoughts of well-known illness narrators like Gilda Radner, Nancy Meyers, and Anatole Broyard. In this book, Frank recounts a stirring collection of illness stories of personal suffering. They abound with moral choices and point to social ethic. It discloses how illness experiences rewrite the chapters of person's life, how individual experiences of illness can be retold in many different ways and forms to the varied audiences and experiences of the storyteller journey. Ill people are more than victim of disease or patient of medicine, they are wounded storyteller. The wounded storyteller is anyone who has suffered and lives to tell the tale. People tell stories to make sense of their suffering. When they turn their disease into stories, they find healing. Here the author is attempting to challenge the social norms of illness passivity, the person and victims of disease towards activity in active storytelling to turn fight into experiences. It is not only in written form, but also the way people tell and retell stories in sequence orally to family, friends, and medical staff. However, how illness stories are told in media, advertisement, and public health campaign. It is worthwhile for ethics and for addressing the questions of how to live a good life. In the earlier chapters of this book, author has described how body suffering during illness creates a need for stories, while in the middle chapters he described narrative structure in which their stories become stories and stories were understood as a form of testimony. Finally, in his last chapter, author introduced the concept of suffering to describe what illness has to teach the society. More accessible is author's discussion of the three basic narratives of illness into which he categorizes illness stories. They are restitution narrative, in which the ill person is restored to health. Second is the chaos stories, in which life never gets better. And last is the quest stories, in which the illness leads to new knowledge. For each type of narrative, Frank has described its power and its limitations. They are often combined in storytelling. In each narrative, cultural and personal preferences are reflected. Understanding of these three types of narratives serves for a narrative ethic of illness. Restitution narrative. It anticipates getting well again and give prominence to the technology of cure. It is about individual desire to restore health. There is expectation that for every suffering there is remedy. Therefore, audiences want to hear restitution stories. It can be summarized as, yesterday I was healthy, today I am sick, but tomorrow I'll be healthy again. Any journey in the kingdom of illness is limited one from which return is expected and possible. Next is the chaos narrative. It is just opposite from the restitution narrative. In chaos narrative, illness seems to stretch on forever with respite and redeeming insight. It imagines life never getting better. They are life threatening and filled with anxiety. That's why audiences find it hard to hear. It can be told in words and can be only lived. Stories are reconstructed, one from some distance has been achieved. It can be summarized as events without sequence, the storyteller's loss of control complemented by medicine's ability to control the disease. And the last one is quest narrative. Quest narratives are about finding that insight as illness is transformed into means for the ill person to become someone new. It gives storyteller more distinctive voice. Many quest stories are published and are also apparent forms such as patient advocacy. Basic storyline of quest narrative is meeting suffering head on, accept illness and use it something is to be gained through the experiences. Furthermore, author identifies three types of quest narrative. They are memoir, manifesto, and automythology. Memoir is a biographical storytelling device which combines illness stories with other events in person's life. Manifesto is gentle of quest narrative. Truth that has been learned is prophetic, often carrying demand for social action, insisting that illness is social issue, not simply personal. Automythology, predominant metaphor of the automythology is phonics, reinventing itself from the ashes of the fire of its own body. In addition to the three narratives of illness storytelling, Frank identified three dimensions by which one's relationship to the body may be understood. They are control versus contingency, self versus other relatedness, dissociation versus association with the body, and desire versus lack of desire. Moreover, Frank presents a diagram in which he sketches four ideal typical bodies that arise from various combination of control contingency, which include the disciplined body, mirroring body, dominating body, and the communicative body. First three bodies lead to problem in constructing a satisfactory illness narrative, and the last body is idealized type, which provides an ethical ideal for bodies. Wounded Storyteller is a theoretical provoking testimony to the importance of illness storytelling. Author explained that testimony does not replace modern medicine with supporting theories such as sick role. However, testimony opens the possibility from shifting between the framework that is required to respond to the ill. Frank argues that modernist conception of illness is a form of colonization in which ill person hand over their body to biomedical expertise. He claims medical culture adds to silence the ill, and by finding the language with which to convey a story of illness, the storyteller enters into a moral relationship with the person to whom he or she is telling the story. Delivering the story, the storyteller not only organizes his or her thoughts and feelings about a body that has become alien, but he or she acts as a witness to his or her own suffering. This testimony charges the listener to take the story and learn from it. Frank claims that a moral listener will hear of another person's suffering and become mobilized to help others who are suffering. He is deeply concerned with what he terms the pedagogy of suffering with ill people have to teach society. Although illness stories can make a contribution to medical decision making, their value in Frank's view is not a clinical adjudication but in personal becoming, in addressing the questions of how to live a good life. Frank has done a masterful job in identifying the voice needed in the battle with life-threatening illness. After reading the book, I felt like the author has not targeted the audiences, and also he has not described some of the terms. He has not defined some of the terms like pre-modern, post-modern, and modern, which makes the learners readers difficult to understand. Overall, The Wounded Storyteller is a powerful book which focuses on storytelling of illness experiences and its therapeutic effect on ill people life. Illness stories shape our communities and personal relationships. It is worthwhile because of Frank's insight into the relationship between self, body, and illness. Thus, the core of the book is how can storytelling affect the society and how can life be affected by the stories. Thank you for watching the video.